How do you handle criticism about intermittent fasting? No matter what kind of diet plan you're on, you're going to probably face criticism from time to time, especially when you're doing something that a lot of people don't really even know about, like intermittent fasting. Having this YouTube channel, I've certainly had my share of some criticism come my way, and so I'm going to just take you through the process of how I handle it, some strategies I use, and how I think about it. The first thing I like to keep in mind is that usually people are coming from a really nice place. That a lot of times it comes out wrong, but they're really not trying to attack you. Usually they're only concerned for your safety or your own well-being. So if you find that somebody is really criticizing your plan, the first thing you can do is talk about your own personal experience. A lot of times people just assume that, like, if you're fasting, you're going to be really tired all the time or very hungry all the time, or that you're even starving yourself. So I find it helpful to just talk about my own experiences and really share, like, well, here's what I've experienced. I've had a lot more energy. I really don't feel hungry during the day, and my body has adjusted really well to it, and I've been losing weight. And it is tricky, though, if you're just getting started out and you really don't have your own experience to go on, right? But you can talk about other people who you know who have done it and kind of offer that up. But some people might continue, even past that, even though they know you're feeling great, they may continue to kind of needle you and talk about, they're afraid of the medical aspect of it. And since I'm not a doctor, I can't provide that kind of advice to people. And so what I like to do is just point people towards doctors and other people in the medical community who are super supportive of intermittent fasting. People like Dr. Jason Fung is a great example. He's a kidney specialist, and he is super in favor of intermittent fasting. But there are occasions where the person maybe doesn't really have good intentions. They're just being critical just to be negative or things like that. And the thing is, you don't even have to respond to them. Like, you could just refuse to argue with them about it, which is what I generally do. I refuse to argue diet dogma with anybody, because I know that phrase, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still, is so true. So really, there's no point in wasting your breath. I've never had to apply this tactic in real life. I definitely have to apply it, on the YouTube channel. A lot of times, if there's a negative comment that's just there to be negative and mean, I just go ahead and delete it. And, if they're super belligerent, I'll just block them from the channel. But, in real life, a lot of times we feel like, oh, we've got to explain ourselves to everybody. And really, the only person you have to explain yourself to is you. So, you need to be okay with it. Certainly talk to your doctor and read books and really research whatever plan you're using, but then realize, past that, you really don't have to give anybody an explanation. But let's talk about the aftermath, because if you're like me, once you get criticized on something, it's still going to sting a little bit. And so how do you rebound from that? First of all, remember that you get to choose your response. You cannot control what other people say, the criticisms that they might put forth, but you can certainly choose how you respond to it. You can choose to not engage with them. You can choose to really just choose your emotions and say, I'm not going to let that affect me, because who are they even, And if it's somebody who means a lot to you, again, trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like to kind of play a game where I try to make up, these crazy stories. The reason why they're being so mean is because, this and this and this happened to them today, and I have no idea what's going on in their life. Another thing that I've found that really helps is to really assess what was actually said. Not like, the thing that you interpreted it as, but really, especially if it's an online comment, go back and try to read unemotionally what was actually said, because intent and emphasis and tone is really hard to understand online. So again, going back and giving people the benefit of the doubt has been really helpful. And what I've found is sometimes on the second read through, I've found out that, like, oh, they're not even saying what I originally thought they were saying. And the last tip that I have is to write it down really in depth. Write out, what was said, how it made you feel. You could also go into why it's not true, and you can even write it as if you're going to write it to that other person, and that can really help you. So in future conversations, you'll know what to say. If you're like me, I'm an introvert, and I don't do too well in personal confrontations, but afterwards I can really, write it all down. But of course, don't actually send the letter because you'll probably regret that. So that's how I've handled intermittent fasting criticism in the past. I'm curious to know, do you ever get criticized for practicing intermittent fasting? And if so, have you found any, surefire ways to kind of turn the conversation into a positive one? Have you found that people usually, after you kind of educate them about it, they're, actually pretty agreeable about it? What's been your experience? Okay, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below.